You want to do that first or last?
It does not matter. Let's do last.
Okay.
Hopefully the title works for you guys. You guys didn't give me anything, so I was like, I get to make it up.
Yeah, that's my fault. I forgot to send the slides out.
I think the title's cool though. Watching the Seas. If I do say so myself, CTR should be pretty high now.
I wasn't going to complain. I thought it was.
Okay, we're all good to go.
All
4
right.
people watching though. Jesus, get some friends, man.
Oh, I don't think I announced it in the groups either. We'll send them the link after. Well, thank you everyone for coming to watch another episode of SEO Fight Club. I know it's been a while because of the holidays. So it's since before Christmas, and it's now after New Year's.
Yeah, I think January or December 23rd or something like that was the last one.
Yeah. So it's been quite a bit. So I don't blame people if they're not in the habit of coming back to watch. So hopefully they realize, hey, there's a new episode and come check it out. So
I blame
definitely, if you want to help us out, please go to your favorite groups and ping people that there's a new episode to watch, either currently or once there's the replay on YouTube. So get everyone back into the spirit of coming to check out the shows on Wednesdays. And with that, today we're going to be talking about SEO weather and Google updates. And at the end, we're going to talk about IMG and what that's all about and what it has to offer. But before we do that, I want to talk about SEO this week. So, Clint, what can people expect?
Oh, we went over 14 different stories. We got 4 case studies. Took a really good look at Steve Toth. I'm sure I'm messing up his name, but Steve Toth's SEO notebook, and a couple of roll-up posts and a new piece of content that's in there. And then Ted and I had just nice, decent discussion about the news and what we thought of it. So I hope you enjoy that one.
Awesome. Yeah. If you haven't heard about SEO this week, you should check it out. It's a huge time saver. Clint goes through all the trouble to read all of the news publications throughout the whole week. And he boils it down to the, 5 or 10 or so that matter most. And he goes over them in his show. So if you're like me and you used to or currently spend dozens of hours each month pouring through SEO news, now you can let Clint do that for you and get all that time back. So that's the value of it. And Clint does a great job of it too. So he really pours through everything. He finds a lot of stuff I would miss. So the IMG test tool, there are literally a dozen people on the planet who give a crap about this and will actually use it effectively. I am trying to find that 12 people, let them know I have made a free piece of software that makes SEO testing a lot easier. It's not for everybody. You need to be a bit technical to do SEO testing. So if you are a novice, feel free to check it out and see what it's all about. I have some videos that walk through what the software does and how to use it. But don't feel bad if it's over your head and more than you want to bite off. We understand that there are only 12 people on the planet that will do this, and that's why I'm not charging for it. It's a free tool, and we hope if you are a tester that you reach out to any of us because we want to know about testers. We think SEO testers are very cool. We want to know about the research you're doing. We want to bring you on the show and talk about your findings. So if you're a tester, we think you're awesome, contact us. All right. So SEO weather, when you look at all the SEO weather tools out there, there's about a dozen providers of SEO weather. What they're generally doing is they're looking at the volatility and rankings for a a large number of keywords and URLs. And when they see those rankings are really volatile, they're like, oh, something's going on with Google. There might have been an update. And if that ranking devastation is big enough, they kind of look back and say, yeah, looks like on this date, because of the devastation we see today, we think that this many days back in the past that Google had an update that caused that devastation. And so SEO weather is like reporting on, destroyed homes after a tornado. And if there are enough destroyed homes, we can say, yeah, it kind of looks like a tornado blew through here, or a hurricane, if you will. So these weather systems, they indicate that an update happened in the past by looking at that ranking devastation. It's not an early warning, though. You can't use those systems to say, uh-oh, should I be on the lookout right now? It's kind of after the fact. Like, the homes are already destroyed by the time those systems are alerting to them. Have you guys used any SEO weather systems?
I use Serpwooz a lot. I like a Serpwooz, and then on occasion there's the one that Moz has.
Also, I check out Algoroo every once in a while too, in addition to some of the other big ones.
So yeah, there's a couple I didn't even hear of. I pinged people. The Moz one I did, Moz and SEMrush, though, they try to make it so that you can't access their data. Like, they want to share their data, but they encode it in an image and they protect it with Cloudflare and they deny bots, and they make it really hard to use their data. But some of the other ones make it really easy. They're doing a community service and they're like, here's our data. So if you find these SEO weather systems cool, like I do, you should definitely go and check them out and thank them for providing a community service, because I think all of them are genuinely trying to do a community service. And I think that's a very noble thing. So they should all be applauded for sharing data like this. So one of the things I'm doing in IMG is I'm trying to build a next generation SEO weather system. And part of doing that is I need to figure out what the current weather systems do, how they work, what their limitations are, and what can we do to get predictive. And so here I have 6 weather systems. One of them is the IMG weather system. And you notice they kind of have this stratification where they're at different layers.
Do you have slides?
What's that?
Do you have slides?
Oh, am I not sharing?
Nope. I thought we were having an awesome conversation though.
Wow, Ted's going for this one.
I was like, yes, no crutch or anything. Boom.
All right. So are you seeing that now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, folks. You don't need to worry because I didn't really have visual aids until this slide, so you didn't miss anything. Okay, so you can see here I have the aggregated and normalized weather from 6 different weather systems. And the green line is the IMG prototype for SEO weather. And you can see that stratification I was mentioning, how it's kind of in layers. And what I think is happening, why the weather systems tend to be in layers that don't show much volatility in their measurement, is that they're seeing the compression of the data by taking averages of large amounts of ranking fluctuations. And when you do that, those averages kind of compress them into straight lines that don't move easily. So if they're looking at 1 million keywords, this is the average volatility of 1 million keywords. And that number is difficult to move up or down. because
it doesn't really matter that one is at 50 for most of the stuff and one's at 40 and one's at 30. That's just their number, right?
Well, what's so interesting about that is there's probably a very rational reason for why they're at different levels. What they might be doing by taking the average volatility of these rankings is coming up with the average perceived quality of their sample set by Google. So Google thinks that these rank ranger ones aren't as good quality, so they tend to be more volatile in the SERPs, and that's why they're at a 50. So their sample of what they're watching is lower quality than this SERP metrics one, where it's at a lower level. There's less volatility in their sample set. So they're all compressing. That's why they're horizontal bars with very little movement. But what they're actually measuring, because of the way they're doing it, is probably something like, Google's perceived quality of their sample set. And so if I were them, I would probably try to reinvent another way where they can get the volatility of Google's activity back and not compress that data with averages. So like one method, if I was to reinvent how they do it, but keep the spirit of what they're doing, I would pick like all the number 4 results on an epic date. So I'd say, go back in time to this date, anything that is number 4 in search, we're going to track those and only those. And then we'll get our reading based on that. And I think if they did that and, maybe reduce the amount of averaging that they're doing, reduce the sample set, maybe they'd get a better reading as to when Google is having activity and when they're not.
So just to clarify, what does 0 mean or 10 mean versus 50? What is that? What does that number quantify?
Well, it's a relative indicator of the volatility of rankings for the most part. It's different for us. So most of these services give you a score between 0 and 100 for what the weather is. So it's their weather score. It's kind of like, the artificial scores that you get out of href, like the UR, DR, those types of scores. Oftentimes, they don't really mean anything other than a relative indicator of something. This URL has more, so it's better. This URL has less. This is from day to day. It's an arbitrary score of the volatility of the rankings. And we've normalized all of the scores to a 100-point scale. Some of these services had a 10-point scale instead of a 100-point scale. So we normalized those to be between 0 and 100.
I got it.
That way they all appear. And what we're looking for, since they're relative, is do our peaks match their peaks? Because when we have agreement, then things start to get interesting. So back here on December 25th, we saw activity, and we're doing something different. We're not looking at the fluctuations of rankings. We're looking for the tells that Google has that they're deploying a system. And if there's a whole lot of those tells, we're going, whoa, there's a big deployment going on. And if there's not a lot of those tells, we're like, it doesn't look like Google's propagating stuff out to their servers like we normally see when they announce a giant deployment. So we've collected those tells and we're keeping them secret, but we're reporting on when we see them and when we see a lot of them. And so instead of looking at the average fluctuations and rankings, we're looking at those tells that Google's deploying something on their giant grid of servers. And so back on the 25th, we saw a big event. We were like, whoa, Google's doing something big. And then a few days out, this advanced web rankings weather showed the same spike we showed. So we were like, oh, big thing here. And then they saw the devastation here. We saw a little bit of an uptick on the SERP metrics one too. So they kind of agreed a few days later that something had happened. But you can see how we're trying to get predictive. A few days ahead, we saw the deployment activity. A few days later, we saw, these compressed bumps because they're compressing their data, and it's not very volatile to move the average. But it's interesting that the peaks, we matched some peaks there. And then on the 31st, we saw a big event. And then again, Advanced Web Rankings, their weather saw the big event too, but we saw it a day ahead. So we are predictive in seeing that event. And that's our goal with our system, is we want an early warning. We want to say, hey, people, get ready, look out, go to your basement before the tornado hits you. And we'll go into the things you can do when you have an early warning in a bit. But we just wanted to show the data and help you understand that there are differences in the weather systems. And it's going to be critical going forward to not just use any one, but to use multiple. Because these community services, when you bring all that community service data together, it's kind of magical. And so that's, an important thing that we want to do going forward. And like a bad poker player, Google's updates have numerous tells that they're occurring. Not just one, they have many tells that Google is deploying something. And not only is it just an update, but Google has many types of updates. And we'll go into that too. So how does an early warning help? Do big SEO changes like redesigns and domain changes and HTTPS migrations in the app, do those types of things in the afternoon in Pacific Standard Time? Because that's what Google's in. Google often has very little to no update activity during those times. And so if we're monitoring for that Google deployment activity and we find zones where they don't do those deployments, that's when you want to do your SEO big actions. So your redesign deployments, your domain changes, your HTTPS migrations. Because if you do your stuff when Google isn't doing their stuff, any outcome is more likely to be a result of your work. If you deploy at the same time Google's deploying a big update, you don't know if that outcome is a result of what you did or is a result of the update. So one big thing you can do is not do big actions while Google is doing big actions. Another thing you can do, if you know that Google's doing a big update and say you're an online retailer, you can go, oh no, I don't know if my rankings are going to fall from this big update. I can take protective measures for my revenue and increase budget in pay-per-click. That way, if there's any chance of losing revenue from organic, I can offset it. So if I know I'm going to have trouble making payroll and I see Google's doing something big and I get hit hard with Google updates every time they happen, I can mitigate that revenue loss by investing in a different marketing channel until I see the fallout. So, there's things you can do if you're often hit by updates, but your life depends on the revenue you make. You can also pay closer attention and manage expectations better. It's really bad to, in front of a client, be caught off guard. And, the client saying, why did my rankings fall? And you happen to say after the fact, well, we think there was an update. It's much better if you can get to a point where you can say, hey, we might see some volatility. We think there's a big Google deployment happening right now. Then that volatility happens, and then you look like an SEO god for predicting it, you know? So you want to manage those expectations, and then you can say, hey, I told you up front that those ranking losses, might happen this week, and then they did. That wasn't from our SEO, that was an update, but we can help recover. We can figure out what's going on and try to adapt. So that's another way early warnings can help. Any thoughts on using early warnings?
Well, I think one of the big things that you've got, Ted, is people often give ranking reports to their clients, and they happen on a specific time when that report is generated, in whatever tool you're using. If they look a little weird, or you can look at like how the things are going, how the update predictor is working, and be like, you know what, let's wait one day. Let's let things settle down a little bit instead of sending a report when things are in flux, and who knows what that report's going to look like. And it's not going to be indicative of the work you're actually doing.
Yeah, exactly. The more you can eliminate that confusion and variance, the better. And the better that you're able to explain those events, saying, we don't think this outcome is a result of our SEO. We think it's Google's update activity. We think we should wait a week or two and then take a measurement. That's an important thing.
I think plus being able to give your clients a heads up like that is it's a value added for them, and they have, and more importantly, they have more trust in you, and they know that you're on top of it and you're paying attention and you know what you're doing, versus the normal guy or gal or agency that it's not tracking it that closely. It's kind of, like waiting for the tornado to hit versus someone who's, in advance, like you said, to use that analogy.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be the SEO that only knows about the Google update after it's destroyed your home. That's a bad position to be in. So I mentioned that there are types of updates, and really researching SEO weather, I've really come to understand that there are different types of updates, and these weather systems are largely blind to all of them. So another thing that we're looking is trying to broaden our understanding of the types of activity that Google is updating. And so there are algorithm updates, and these affect which factors influence your rankings for a keyword. Those examples of those would be like panda, penguin, medic. There are meta blending updates, because a lot of people still don't understand that Google is a meta search engine. They're actually multiple search engines, and they're blending the results for your keyword search together, and they can alter the mix of those outputs. And so some of what they're mixing is local, organic, ad search, knowledge graph, shopping, image, videos, news, related search, people also ask, and other things. An example of one of those meta blending updates is when Google changed page 1 and it went from 10 organic results to 9. And most of the world didn't even know that Google took away 10% of their page 1 rankings. They instantly went to page 2 when Google did that in the meta blend. But that's an example of an update to the meta blend, and we should be watching for those. Query intent updates. These are things like instant, BERT, rank brain. These are how Google understands your query and better utilizes cache, how they interpret what your query means and what they should do in response to that intention. But those aren't changing the factors of how Google ranks your page. That's changing how Google understands the searcher's query. So that's a different type of update than one that would potentially make you rank 6 places lower. There are HTML updates, and these are when Google changes the HTML of the search result page. And they often do split tests on on the formatting of how these pages look. And those changes oftentimes can break SEO tools. They're notorious for breaking rank trackers. And so Google will do an HTML update, and all of a sudden a bunch of people go, oh no, all my rankings just fell through the floor. Well, they didn't actually change at all. It just broke the parsing in their rank tracker. And they thought that all their rankings fell. And if you go and manually spot check your rankings, you'll see, oh, nothing actually changed. My rank tracker got unreliable because Google did an HTML update, or Google's doing split testing. And if I retest my rankings, they'll come back. And if I retest them again, I'll get the B split test and they'll drop. And so there are these HTML updates too. And then there are process updates, and these affect the timing and scope of Google's data processing. And Caffeine and Mayday and the Google Search Console updates, and PageRank going from quarterly to batch processing to continuous processing. Those are examples of process updates, and they affect the timing of when Google does things behind the scenes that could impact your rankings. And so these are like the types of updates we've come to understand. And so the SEO weather tools out there, they don't indicate all these different types of updates. And so we want to move in a direction where we understand all of this type of activity and how it impacts, our SEO. And so we're still in the early days of that, but it's important to understand there's not one algorithm. There's not one type of Google update. There's many types. And some of them, unfortunately, are a lot easier to detect than others. So I wish I could say that we could detect them all. I think a lot of them, most of them, we will eventually be able to detect and report on. But some of them are going to be a lot harder to report on than others. So early warnings, what we've started to do in a preliminary basis is be able to say, hey, we've seen this type of update and it looks to be this, severe. What's the severity of it? So in our system, we color code. So this one had a scale of 22 out of 100, and that gave it a medium. So we make arbitrary breakpoints on how severe we think it is based on our experience. And then we report on. So we could see here that on this day, on the 27th, it started the day to say 0, no update. So, hey, everybody, good morning, no update activity. Mid-morning, whoa, Google started doing something. It's a 3 on that activity, on those tells. And then all of a sudden, midday, boom, it's a 22. We need to start looking out. Oh, let me go back. So we saw in our stream in the IMG group that in the morning it was no update, then it was tiny, then it skipped the small date and jumped straight to medium. Google got to work on that update. And then here we had a notification that our aggregate SEO that I showed you earlier came into play. And so that's how they present in the IMG group currently. And this will be an evolving system as we get more types, and I'll show you more types too. We'll get different types of listings and we'll report those independently. So another thing is those HTML updates that I mentioned before, the ones that break your rank trackers and make you think your rankings all plummeted, even though they haven't when you manually check. So we're measuring those currently. And we can tell you interesting information, like sometimes you're time sharing. Google takes your result out of the search results to test some other piece of content to see if it's worthy of being in the search results. So you timeshare your spot. For example, Google will show about 600 search results for the keyword Google. There are millions of pages that talk about Google. They can't show them all in the primary index. They only show you about 600. So some of that 600, you have to timeshare your spot so that Google can test other content out of the millions of pages that talk about Google. And so we can measure that timeshare. We can detect the types of split tests that Google's doing and say, how many types of split tests did we see? And we saw on this date that there were about 3.5 split test cases on average for the keywords we were looking. And we can calculate what were the odds of a Google session seeing one of those split tests. And on this day is about 10%. That's important because it means about 10% of the time, your rank trackers were going to tell you you have massive drops in your rankings. When we see these numbers go up, lots of different split tests and the odds of seeing them get really high, we know to be skeptical of rank trackers. And that's why these types of weather updates are important, because you know to go manually check your rankings, to be skeptical of those drops.
On the split test there, does it, maybe you're getting to it, but do you show or illustrate what you saw the change?
I don't, because my system, I'm going to show you some of my system. But if I showed you what I was exactly seeing, it would give you the data on how I'm doing it and what I'm watching, and that would spoil our monitoring system. So I can't directly show you my exact data, but I can report to you, the information that we're pulling from my exact data.
Okay.
And so an example, this is one example. Google was, and it's a common example that you'll see currently. Google was showing standard search results, but some of the time they were showing this hybrid of the mobile presentation in desktop. That was one of their split tests. And so we would capture it. And here are all the B's highlighted. So this is, one keyword, this is another keyword, this is another keyword, and I have test pages in all of these different keywords. And some of them would generally see all A's, but in green, we'd see the B split test come into play at different amounts. And so we capture when Google is changing that search result HTML, and then we can report this data. And so understanding Google's activities is pretty key to weather. And, we're still in the early days of SEO weather. Like, there are so many discoveries I made in just looking at SEO weather and figuring out what I would want. Like, it's an untapped part of SEO that's only been touched upon in, the very, most basic of ways so far. And so I want to applaud all the people that have SEO weather services out there. That's an amazing community service, and you should go out and check out their products and their websites and send them a thank you email for providing SEO weather. I think it's an underappreciated community service. And so I applaud all the companies, even the ones that don't want me to use their data. I applaud them all. And, there's a whole lot more discoveries to be made. And, we want to be in a place where we're making those discoveries and advancing this front. So that is what I have for SEO weather. At this point, if there are questions, maybe we should do those, and then we'll hand it over to Kyle to walk us through IMG.
Looking through, I don't see anything. There is one comment that everyone trusted you more when it was creepy hacker guy in a basement versus cat guy Ted. But other than that, nope, you're good.
Okay, then I will stop sharing and we will hand it over to Kyle.
All right. And how do I share again?
In the Zoom window, there's a green share button.
Center.
Are we good?
Yep.
All right. So this is just so IMG. We did our public relaunch just Monday actually. So we thought we'd do a quick walkthrough so people could see what it's all about, what's there. When you first log in, this is your activity feed. One of the things that's pretty powerful about what we're doing now is that we've got the ability to follow and get notifications on things that you care about and things that you actually want to hear. And so from your activity, you can kind of go through what's the latest. This was from the SEO headlines. This was a comment that Jeff made on something, but you can head over here to topics. And this is where these are the things that might interest you. All these different areas on things that you can get into and then actually follow. So for example, if you want to follow just general SEO, you click to follow or unfollow as you like, and then that will actually show up in your activity feed, and you're actually going to get notifications when things are posted in here. You can ask questions about core support and pop support. If there are announcements, the lounge is a place just to kind of for chit chat. Here we have the early warning system. This is in the free section now, so people can see it, but it will actually fold into just into the paid section.
So there is a free section.
There is now, and I think that's supposed to be temporary. Is that correct, Ted?
Well, I think it's important to note that there is a free part of IMG that'll always be free, which is like, the news and, all the content like the shows and there will always be some free algorithm update warnings, but they're not as detailed as in the paid. So what I showed you was a lot of the paid detail. You will get some free SEO weather and IMG, but it won't be as detailed.
Makes sense. So that's there for you, the free version of it, a tool library where you can go in, and there are tons and tons of tools listed in here where you can then look for tools by category or something you might need. And that's where the search comes in. If you search at the very top, so if you're looking for something for keywords, that's just the first one that's there. You would simply type in keywords, and then it's going to pull in all the things that are for that. So it's pulling in all these rank tracking type things if that's what you're looking for. I think we have over 1,000 tools in here now. The list will continue to grow. It is living, but if you're looking for something in particular, that's one thing that, and that's in the free section, and that will always be free. One of the things that I really like, though, are the SEO headlines, the YouTube shows, the newsletters, and podcasts. If these are things that you like to see and you want to get notification of when different shows post, such as this lovely show that you're watching right now, or newsletters or podcasts, you can actually follow and you'll get notification. You can either get notification on your phone via email or both. And you can see I'm following the headlines because I actually like to see the headlines. I do like the shows and the newsletters. I'm not really a podcast guy as much as I want to pretend that I am. So I don't follow the podcast. We have a free SEO test section so you can see what the SEO tests look like, the ones that are published. And then this section here, the top 15 factors, this is aggregated data from Quora as to the top 15 factors that are correlating to rank right now across all data sets. And so in here, you can go and you can see what are the current ranking factors. And they are here. And this is also, again, in the free section, this will always be free. You'll notice that some things like SpyFu and SEMrush are ranking highly. I know that there's some questions about that, Ted. Do you want to give a 3-second response onto why those things show?
Yeah, we don't pick this list. This is what has got the strongest correlation. In the paid section, we blow it out to 100 top factors or more even. And we have data that shows what the measurements are. So it's kind of a mystery why pay-per-click is correlating so strongly with rank position in Google right now. We don't know why that is the case, but it's interesting that that is the case right now. So if somebody from SpyFu or from SEMrush has some insights about to why they correlate with rankings so strongly right now, we would love to have you on the show to discuss that.
Is there a possibility that SpyFu is really tapping into it at the moment?
What's that?
Is there a possibility that SpyFu is really getting it right?
Well, it's something about these, the organic value of the traffic, and these are like pay-per-click metrics. Mm-hmm. There's something about that right now that's yeah, it looks like it's related to why things rank well. And so I think we need more research, and we need more testing into these pay-per-click attributes and whether or not they impact ranking.
Sure. I do like that Google Result has publish date. We are in the brand new year. I can see people updating their content to be 2020 type of content. I can see that correlating highly to rank.
Well, that's madness because John Mueller just said that it doesn't work.
I know. That's what I've been loving, because I saw that article. Actually, it was great. I got a ping about that article from the headlines.
Yep.
John Mueller mocks this thing, and then I'm looking at the number 2 correlating factor across all things on the web, and I'm like,
there's this interesting phenomenon. Like, for a long time, people said that click-through rate is a ranking factor, and I being a geek, I would make bots and I'd test it, and I'd never get the needle to move under scientific scrutiny for a CTR bot. But yet there's all these studies where manual CTR was moving the needle. And I believe them to be true, but I'm like, we don't really understand a thing if we can't automate it. And then Lee Witcher, IMG tester, he figured out what was moving the needle for click-through rate. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he figured this out. He cracked CTR. And what, the basic fallout, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. That's Lee's research. But the basic fallout of that is that most people will do a thing incorrectly. They'll do it in a way where it doesn't get the result they're expecting. And it could very well be the case that with the publish dates, there is a way that you need to do it to get it to work. And if you do it in a, obviously fake way, that maybe you don't get the benefit of doing it. So maybe you're not doing the publish date in the way that gets the benefit. And so more research and testing needs to go into that. It can't just be a simple test. You have to look at all the different ways and try to distinguish which ways work and which ways
don't. The next section is verified rankings.
Now, if you look at this view right here, you see that Kyle Roof is number 1. And then right in the next update, you fell out of the list. What happened there, Kyle?
So these are verified rankings. So these are you have to prove that you are actually can take credit for this particular thing. And the site that I was using for that, they did a domain migration.
So basically,
and my prime keyword when the tool was run went to nothing.
So what we're doing is we're giving bragging rights to our paid members. So all users can see the verified rankings, but you have to be a paid member to participate in the program. We enter your keyword and domain name into the system. And then our scripts will go and check your rankings. It'll pull your volume, it'll get your ranking, it'll get the CPC for your keyword, and we correlate a score because not all keywords are equal. So we can see that right now, because Kyle fell out on his, I'm number one. But that's based on the volume that my keyword had, the ranking that I had for that keyword, the average CPC for the keyword, and we calculate a score. And we give you the algorithm for how that score is, so you can pick the best keyword to get the highest ranking. And so we want people to join the leaderboard and show off their skills. It's not meant to be authoritative, but it's meant to be, look at what I can do.
That's
And
fun.
so if you have a good example of a ranking, you can give us that data. We'll put you in the system and we'll slot you in where your ranking, volume, and CPC, deserve you to be stack ranked.
Contact Ted privately, so do that through direct direct messages. There are a couple different verifications, but you don't want to post.
Yeah, we suspect that people want to boast about their rankings, but they don't want to share their keyword or their website.
Yeah.
So this is a way that you can boast through us and keep it publicly confidential, but you can get the bragging rights that, oh, I have a verified ranking through IMG of this. And so we think that's a cool thing. And if you want to do that, join paid and contact me privately, and we'll put you in the system and you'll be in the leaderboard with your ranking.
The last topic here in the pre-section is SEO 101. There is no question too noob for this. One nice thing about what we've got going on is the different topics. You post them so that you can then see answers later. People can contribute at any time rather than things getting lost in a long thread. We do have group chat if you do need a quick chit chat. But otherwise, if it's a question, finding the right topic area for it is the right place to post and have that discussion so that it won't get lost and it is archivable. If you do want to have a quick chat, we have the chat section up here where you can do one-on-one chats. This is the public chat for the free area, and then there's also in my course, for example, there's a chat there if you just have a quick question. There are also topics within each of those areas too. So if you have a longer term question, you can pose it there. But if you have just something quick or just a hey or that sort of thing, then we do have that chat available.
Yeah, the problem with chat is that it's kind of immediate. If you ask a question in chat, 6 hours later, it'll be ancient history and it's hard to get back to. So if you want to ask a question and get an answer, then posting it in your question and the correct topic is the best way to get a lot of great answers that are easy to come back to. So if you want to ask a question and come back 8 hours later, do that in a topic instead of chat.
Totally agree. Really, it's just anything that doesn't need to be answered this moment, but it is a related question. I would encourage people to find topics for that. It's something that you can reference later. In the paid section, which you just go to groups and then paid, again, it's very similar. You see topics, and so within here there are topics. These are published tests. Here are one of my favorite sections, the pro tips and tricks. These are SOPs, checklists, things to think about. So for example, SEO marketing plan considerations. And it's a list of things to think about when putting together an SEO marketing plan. Your local citation lists. These are all the local data aggregators. Ted, I used this one just the other day on a client that was doing a domain migration. And they're like, is there anything else we should consider? I was like, yeah, here are a few things. And I got them right from this list. I will heart this list.
Thank you.
Legacy penguin recovery tips, legacy panda recovery tips, have I been hit by an update? These are things where you can kind of scroll through and see is there something there? And these types of lists, again, are also living. So you can comment on them. You can add to them. You can say, hey, I tried this. It didn't work, but hey, check out that. These are living documents of just how to do SEO and how to do different things in marketing. And they're from beginner. So press release tips for beginners. So from beginner to advanced, there's a lot of awesome information in here that's only available in the paid area. In premium. The weekly digest. So we do a weekly email newsletter that goes out with snippets from conversations, but then in here for paid only, we pull them out by topic so that then you can search for them. So you don't have to go through an entire newsletter, but you can actually, so this is the cool tool of the week, for example, or those other topics. You can go in and then find the things that people are talking about, what's going on within SEO right now, and what's on people's minds, and the answers that they got to those questions that they had, and then some of the top stuff that just was in the group. And so you can see it here. One other thing I would note is the view, and I forgot to mention this. I personally like the this level of view for kind of quick running throughing, but you can kind of go the larger view if you like the feed view better.
Yeah, I like the list view too.
Yeah, I'm more of a list view guy. Testing discussion, so you can kind of see how when tests are being thought of or conceived or things happen, this or that, you can see how that conversation goes. Testing ideas box, this is for, again, just premium. If you have an idea for a test, you can post it here, and this gets priority in getting things done. As mentioned in the free section, there was the top 15. Here in paid is the top 100. And so here are all 100. And within the list, so what I kind of like about the 100 is it gets you past some of these Ahrefs things, and you get into number of factors used, number 24, number of visits, which is interesting, LSI keywords and sentences, entities and sentences. Now, I'm not going to go out and buy SpyFu. No offense, SpyFu, but these are things that I'm looking at across getting things for my site. And then Ted, there's some numbers on the right hand side. Do you want to give
and those three numbers are very useful. So the first one is the maximum and the number one spot on page one. So if you want to know the maximum value that any number one result had, that's it. So that's how far you can push that factor and still rank at the top of Google.
Do you think there'd be some value of? Oh, sorry.
The next one is the page one average. So that's kind of the ballpark to be a contender on page one for the factor. And then the third column is how applicable is it to thousands of different keywords. And so if it tells you that it's 20% there, it's 20% applicable to thousands of different keywords.
So again, getting to number of factors used, the max value is 205 factors. That's actually putting something within a factor area. So a match word in Quora, a variation, a keyword, if you like, in a particular factor area. The top is 205. The average is 121, and this is applicable across nearly 90% of all sites and keywords that are being tracked, right?
Yep. And of course, if you need this information specific to your exact URL and keyword, there's a tool for that.
It's a good tool. Clint, I think I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, do you think there'd be some value in having, because this is combined on and off page data, do you think there'd be value of having another two more, one with just the Ahrefs, SpyFu off page stuff, and then one with on page?
That's a great idea. We might want to segment the list by on page and off page and things of that nature. That's a great idea.
The last section, yeah, I love that idea. The last section in paid is the more detailed weather section. One thing I also wanted to post, I remember somebody was like in some group, they're like, was there an update on the 5th? And the first thing I did is I came in and put in the date. And I took a look. And I could see that on the 5th, there was nothing to start. And then it bumped up to a whole 11, which is pretty small. And then going through looking at the split test and seeing there was a 10% chance. And so really, like when that person was like, I think there's something going on, they may have gotten hit by a split test, but it probably was not an update. And so in that situation, then you can actually then say, like, it's not a group problem, it's not a Google problem, it's a me problem. And you can kind of go into the, what did we do recently? You know, it kind of eliminates that possibility. And now we're getting more into, okay, what did we do?
Speaking of updates,
phenomenal information.
Speaking of updates, you can go to your engineering department and ask for their most recent deployment dates.
Yeah.
That's another kind of update, is did engineering just screw you?
Yeah. And then you can start to target it in. Like if you're identifying like, hey, we had all these things drop, and then you can start eliminating what it's not, that it's not a massive update, that it's not probably a huge split test. It's not any of those other updates. Okay, now it's us. It's an us problem. And then you can really start to dissect what you're doing rather than just, it must have been an update, and because when you post like on Facebook, was there an update? And someone's like, yes, no, I'm good here. What does that do? I'm seeing it, definitely seeing it.
That gives me the opportunity to mess with people.
Yeah, exactly. This guy's following. But the other thing too in our events, so like a beer 30, which is something Ted and I will do bi-weekly, just kind of talking about what's going on within the test stuff. And there'll be AMAs, Ask Me Anythings, that'll all be posted here, which again are also only for in the premium section.
Yeah, and you have to have a beer in hand to attend those.
If you don't have it, you will not be you will not be allowed in. But yeah, so that's the quick run through of what we're doing. The idea is to get in here again. This whole section is all free, and it'll be free. But follow the things that interest you. Not everything I'm sure in SEO interests you, and this gives an opportunity to follow things that you want to know more about. I particularly like getting the headlines. I don't want to go to Search Engine Land or Journal or wherever and start looking at things. That's Clint's job, and he does a great job there. And then I just want to get the headlines, and then I can look at what I'm doing. And actually, what I've done a couple of times is watch the headline and then watch the show to see if it's discussed.
Yeah, we currently scour 27 sources of SEO news, and we update hourly if they post.
So that is that. Stop sharing.
Just one question in the chat is where the link to your testing software is at?
Oh, let me go back to that. And let me share my screen. And there's that URL again. And if you need it, you can always rewind the video.
SEOToolLab.com/IMG-test-tool. Pretty easy to remember. I've already deployed my first test using it. Woohoo! I went big, so 15 domains, 25 pages each, testing indexing.
Yeah, the hardest part from the feedback I've gotten so far is figuring out your FTP credentials. And
yeah, I had to send a flag to Ted. Help me! I don't know. Liquid Web was messing with us. I don't know what the deal with that was. That was a pain.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us again. We'll try to have even more cool topics for Fight Club. If you have ideas, contact Clint, contact me, contact Kyle, let us know, comment, and of course, subscribe, because we get cool features. You might have noticed in the little chat, the live chat window, there's a little $sign icon. If you want to throw us beer money from time to time, that's a possibility. But we only got that option because you people subscribe. And so we get all these cool features based on subscriptions. So please subscribe. And remember to subscribe to SEO This Week too. He had an event where he was like, I don't know if I should keep doing SEO This Week. And then people started throwing money at him to keep it alive. It was hilarious. It was awesome. So
that's going to be a monthly episode topic now.
Last one.
December's I'm closing episode.
So you don't have to throw money at us, but you do have to subscribe if you want us to keep making this great content. So thank you very much, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.